this far? Well, for there we can go and have a look in a 1970s document, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. This actually was the first Bilderberger meetings policy, and on page 7 of Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, we read this. The quality of education given to the lower classes must be of the poorest sort, so that the mote of ignorance isolating the inferior classes from the superior classes is and remains incomprehensible to the inferior classes. With such an initial handicap, even the bright lower class individual have little, if any, hope of extricating themselves from their assigned lot in life. This form of slavery is essential to maintain some measure of social order, peace and tranquility for the ruling upper class. Now you hear it from them themselves. We're kept ignorant. We're kept ignorant. That's our default position. Now, I've mentioned above the Potsdam Institute, so I just want to mention in passing them because, every time an institution or an organization is mentioned, it always leans back to the root committee, as we say. And long story short, it surfaces in East Berlin. It's an initiative that came out of there. Now, you've got to realize East Berlin, you remember the Berlin Wall that went up at the end of World War II? And East Berlin was the seat of the Protestant Reformation, the Martin Luther-led Protestant Reformation. It had to be smashed and hammered. So up went that wall, and for a couple of generations, atheism was taught. This is where Merkel comes out, by the way. As we know, Ronald Reagan said, pull down that wall. He was given the memo to say that, and within months that wall was down. Atheism is a non-Christian worldview. It's code for Mithraism. It's code for pantheism. So Merkel and her lot from the Potsdam Institute are basically part of the one world religion, promoting that, which UNESCO promotes as well. Limits to planetary growth. Let's learn a bit about that. 1972 publication. When you open that documentation, one of the first texts you read is this, quote, Hopes and Fears of the American People, Potomac Associates, is a non-partisan research and analysis organization which seeks to encourage lively inquiry into critical issues of public policy. Its purpose is to heighten public understanding and improve public discourse on significant contemporary problems, national and international. Potomac Associates provides a forum for distinctive points of view through publication of timely studies and occasional papers by outstanding authorities in the United States and abroad. It is this organization of associates that produced, through 2 or 3, maybe 4 authors, The Limits to Growth book. It was dedicated to one Aurelio Piche, or PK. He has a place in this scan. We read this in the dedication page of The Limits to Growth. Dr. Aurelio Piche, whose profound concern for humanity has inspired us and many others to think about the world's long-term problems. Then we come to the foreword in this publication, and I quote, In April 1968, a group of 30 individuals from 10 countries, scientists, educators, economists, humanists, industrialists, and national and international civil servants gathered in the Academia in Rome. They met at the institution of Dr. Aurelio Piche, an Italian industrial manager, economist, and a man of vision, to discuss a subject of staggering scope, the present and future predicament of man. They're telling us in the publication that or at least in this introduction, that they're not looking for we the people to express our views. No, they're telling us what our views will be. The subtitle of the Limits to Growth is this: a report for the Club of Rome's project on the predicament of mankind. So it's a project. And again, if you understand their language, it's not that mankind is in any kind of predicament that we see ourselves in. Mankind's predicament is that the elites don't want us here. That's what the limit to growth is all about. It's sneaky talk. The predicament is that we live and we prosper on this earth and we're having babies. That's the predicament. They see us as the enemy. We are the enemy of the elite. And if you don't believe me, let me read you what Aurelio Piche has to say. And in 1991, there was a Club of Rome report. It was the Global Revolution by Alexander King. And on page 75, it says this: in searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. All these dangers are caused by human intervention. The real enemy, then, is humanity itself. We are the enemy. So they created the famine, they create the shortages, they create all the wars, they create the horrendous fires that we're seeing around the globe, all created by them. Then we've got to ask ourselves, well, who is Aurelio Piche? And for that, we'll just quickly go to Wikipedia. Piche accordingly persuaded the Agnelli Foundation to fund a 2-day brainstorming meeting on the 7th and 8th of April in 1968 of around 30 European economists and scientists at the Accademia dei Lincei in Rome. The goal of the meeting was to discuss the ideas of Piche and King of the globality of problems facing mankind and the necessity of acting at a global level. The meeting at Accademia dei Lincei was not a success, partly due to the difficulty in participants to focus on the distant future. After the meeting, there was an informal gathering of a few people in Piche's home. Within an hour, they had decided to call themselves the Club of Rome and had defined the 3 major concepts that have formed the club's thinking ever since: a global perspective, the long term, and the cluster of intertwining problems they called the problematique. That is who he is and what he is about. Let's just think about the background to this academy. Anglicized, it's known as Lincean Academy. And it's one of the oldest, it's most prestigious academy. It came out of Europe way back in 1603. It was founded by the Vatican, bless them. Who would have thought? Papal states in 1603. However, the academy didn't survive the founder's death, and it just dissolved and disappeared in 1651. But during the 19th century, you know, that Enlightenment period, and when Protestant Christianity was really starting to be attacked, the Vatican rebirthed it. And it's known as the Pontifical Academy of Science. So there it is. We just loop everything back. It was founded in 1847, and it was known as the Pontifical Academy of the New Lince's I haven't pronounced that correctly, but they used the lynx as their logo. The lynx was the type of animal that portrayed what they were all about. Let me read Club of Rome quote, Limits to Growth Report, 1972, synopsis. The global system of nature in which we all live probably cannot support present rates of economic and population growth much beyond the year 2100. If that long, even with advanced technology, man can create a society in which he can live indefinitely on Earth if he imposes limits on himself and his production of material goods to achieve a state of global equilibrium with population and production in carefully selected balance. So there are two supporting documents, because remember this is this launch of this wonderful Earth for all, but it's for all. It's those that are going to survive into the fourth world. It's those that are going to be the slaves for the elite. So let's have a look at the two supporting documents. Now we're going to do paper 13 and then we'll get on to paper 12. We're just going to reverse the order. I'm not sure that there really is an order, but numerically it might sound as though there is. It's a deep dive paper, they tell us, and it's called Regenerative Agriculture for Food Security and Ecological Resilience, illustrating global biophysical and social spreading potential. So that's a pretty scary title for their documentation. It's always a little bit gobbledygook. It's always a little bit highfalutin and using all these wonderful words that we're not really familiar with, and that kind of knocks us off the balance. Do you notice when they talk to us very simply, because we're so dumbed down? I will be your only source of truth. You know, that kind of terminology, that kind of vocabulary. But when they do their documentation, they make sure it's right up there so we can't quite get a handle on it. It's kind of code in a way, but it's very simple code. So as you can imagine, the authors all come out of Germany. There's a couple there from Sweden. And really, this document sure shows us that they think they've got it all wrapped up. You know, this food security, they're destroying farming around the globe, burning good pastoral paddocks, trying to get us away from eating meat, pushing veganism with millions of taxpayers' dollars and pounds to push their narrative. But let's read just a few excerpts from this deep dive paper 13. This is the introduction. Agriculture has been closely interwoven with human development for centuries and is now a core issue of anthropocence. The Neolithic, or first agricultural revolution, and later green revolution formed nature into a cultivated landscape and decisively shaped social landscapes, thus creating the bias of our modern society. So they're talking evolutionary terms with their Neolithic, no such thing. They're talking in the 1960s, this green revolution, and they're now saying that model just ain't going to cut the mustard. So this is a couple of their starting points. This is the take-home message they're wanting us to understand. It is essential to increase productivity on the already existing agriculture land to ensure food security while not putting earth stability at further risk. That means cutting down farms, going to the laboratory for our food, and having toxic food, really. But it's sounding good for us. It's sounding like, agriculture is our way forward. It is not. It's just a word salad to make us think that it's all good. Second take-home message, if the system is ripe for change, the regenerative agriculture movement can potentially reach a social tipping point, which could accelerate widespread system change in agriculture. Systems change. It's all about system change. Go back to go back to We Go video that I've already done. Systems change. They're change agents. It is not the kindly changes that you are expecting. And this document concludes with this quote. In this deep dive, we have illustrated the potential to address some of the most urgent challenges of our time in social ecological land systems. Restoring and conserving healthy soils and creating resilient farming systems to provide food security while adapting to climate change impacts such as droughts and extreme weather events are central to a global food system turnaround. So now, see, you get to the conclusion and you start to realize what it's all about. It's a turnaround. There will be no agriculture, not in the way we know it. They are swapping out a sustainable life for their sustainability, because the word sustainability has got nothing to do with this globe. Sustainability is to do with us. Remember, we are the enemy. We have to be sustainable, which means we have to be whittled down, culled, and we have to be totally controlled. Now, the next paper, another deep dive, and this is paper 12, and it is titled From Greening to Present System to Real Transformation, Transforming Resource Use for Human Well-Being and Planetary Stability. It's 19 pages. I believe it's a little bit longer than the previous one. And you've got it. The usual suspects are there. We've got Jans Potocnik, co-chair of the International Resource Panel and a member of the Club of Rome. Anders Wijkman, honorary president of the Club of Rome and member of the International Resource Panel. And we've also got a whole lot of people not mentioned, and they're on board, and they come from Systems IQ. What is Systems IQ? You know, they just branch out everywhere, so it's so hard to know what everything's about. So I'm just going to pause here in this document 12, just check out Systems IQ. So for that, I went to systemsiq.earth, and their website states, transforming systems for a better future for the elites. They seem to think they're going to predict the future, but I just want to read this quote from a lecture, a 2003 lecture given by the author and I think he's a researcher, Michael Crichton. And he says this, I think it's very poignant. Let's think back to the people in the 1900s and say New York. If they're worried about people in 2000, what would they worry about? Probably, where would people get enough horses? And what would they do with all the horse poo? Horse pollution is really bad in the 1900s. Think how much worse it would be a century later with so many people riding horses. Of course, within a few years, nobody rode horses except for sport. And in 2000, France was getting 80% of its power from an energy source that was unknown in 1900. Remember, people of 1900 didn't know what an atom was, what a radio, airport, movie, television or computer or a cell phone, an antibiotic, a rocket, kidney transplant, AIDS. None of this would have meant anything to a person in the year 1900. Now you tell me you can predict the world in the year 2100. Tell me it's worth even thinking about it. I think that puts everything into perspective. But the elites don't care, because remember, this isn't about worrying about the earth. They know the earth can look after itself. And they know they can get rid of us. And they know that they can do a clean-up and get the earth back to in good order after they've ruined it with 1080 and geoengineering and forest fires and all the other eradication that they're about. They know that. So let's have another quote from Systems IQ website. Quote, how do we build an economy that provides prosperity for all, stabilizing the climate and regenerates nature for generations to come? We want to be the world's leading systems change firm, purpose-built to tackle the toughest challenges faced by our generation. System IQ seeks to bring speed and scale to transforming 5 systems that shape how we live and work: energy, nature and food, materials, urban areas, and finance. So you see, they want to be the world's first. Again, it's not about worrying about the ecology. It's being the world's first. They want to lead the systems change. So everything that they are pushing towards is an echo chamber, is in Plato's cave scenario. They only believe the scenes that the Club of Rome are putting before them. They're called useful idiots. That's what the elites call people in System IQ. Let's go back to Deep Dive 12, their paper, and it says, a certified B Corp, System IQ is highly collaborative system designer, developer, and disruptor. So you see, System IQ people, they want to disrupt. Remember what equity meant? Disrupt, dismantle. It goes on in this Deep Dive 12. We unlock system change by developing trusted, wholehearted partnerships with leaders in civil society, innovative investors, government and business, and finance. That's trusted in the narrative. That's all. We just need people that are on board. It states in this deep dive, our vision is a thriving planet where sustainable economic systems drive prosperity for all. So that's all. That's the elite. And economic systems, remember, that's well-being systems. It's not financial systems. That's us. We need to be sustainable. We need to keep them culled. We need to keep them controlled. It says in its summary, learning from the limits to growth 50 years later, natural resource use is driving the world's environmental challenges and will dramatically increase without action. Earth for All follows up on the limits to growth by recommending 5 key turnarounds for planetary stability and human well-being in the 21st century. So that's what they're all about. And this word planetary, everyone's using that, from the Vatican to the UN to all these useful idiots, because that buys into Mithraism as well. I will read to you paper 12, Introduction, Limits to Growth. Quote, this year marks 50 years since the publication of the Club of Rome's report, The Limits to Growth. The report is a sharp critique of the notion of material growth as eternal. The report predicts increased problems as a consequence of rapidly growing populations and economies. The forecast then was that the world economy would face the risk of collapse within 50 to 100 years as a result of resource depletion, increasing volumes of waste and pollution, and degradation of vital ecosystems. So there it all is as well. That's from the elite's perspective. Everything's urgent. Everything's a problem because of we the people.